Imagine driving from Denver, Colorado to Death Valley, a 1,000-mile trip across the American West. Now compress that same elevation change into a distance you could walk in a single day. That's the land of ancient Canaan. This tiny strip of land, about the size of Rhode Island, has seen more warfare than almost any place on Earth. The reason is written into the ground itself. To understand why, we need to zoom out, way out, to see where this land sits on the map of the ancient world. Canaan occupied a narrow corridor between three great power centers: Egypt to the southwest, Mesopotamia to the east, and Asia Minor to the north. Three major trade roads funneled through this corridor: the Via Maris along the coast, the Ridge Road through the hills, and the King's Highway east of the Jordan. Caravans carried gold, grain, spices, and textiles along these roads. Controlling the highways brought enormous wealth in peacetime, but those same roads carried invading armies. Every empire that wanted to project power across the ancient world had to march straight through Canaan. The crossroads position was a double-edged sword, prosperity and vulnerability inseparable. The result, a relentless parade of foreign rulers: Egyptians, Amorites, Israelites, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Ptolemies, Seleucids, Romans, one after another for over 2,000 years. No other piece of land this small has changed hands so many times, so every empire wanted this corridor. But what was the land itself actually like? The land divides into three north-south strips. First, the coastal plain along the Mediterranean, flat, fertile, and open. Second, the central hill country, a rugged spine of limestone ridges cut by east-west valleys. Third, the Great Rift Valley, a deep geological trench running north to south through the land. Now watch the elevation profile from west to east. Start at sea level on the coast, climb to the central hills. Jerusalem sits at 2,500 feet, then plunge. The Sea of Galilee lies 700 feet below sea level. The Dead Sea 1,300 feet below, the lowest point on Earth's land surface. That's a 3,800-foot drop in roughly 15 miles. Mount Hermon in the far north reaches 10,000 feet, snow-capped and lush. The Dead Sea shore is barren salt flats. This is not a desert wasteland. It's a land of violent contrasts: snow, farmland, desert, and the lowest place on Earth, all packed into an area smaller than New Jersey. Now let's zoom in on two places that capture the paradox of this land. The Valley of Jezreel, also called the Plain of Megiddo, was the most fertile stretch of ground in all of Canaan. Rich soil, reliable water, ideal for agriculture. It was also the bloodiest battlefield in the region's history. The reason is topography. The central mountain range blocks east-west travel across the country. The Jezreel Valley is the one major gap, a natural pass through that mountain barrier. Every army that needed to cross the land funneled through here. The same geography that made the valley a breadbasket made it a killing field. One detail worth remembering: the word Armageddon comes from Megiddo. Now, follow the Jordan River 65 miles south. At the Sea of Galilee, the shores are green, the water is fresh, and the lake teems with fish. 65 miles downstream, the Dead Sea, 25% salt, essentially lifeless. Between Jerusalem and the Dead Sea lies the wilderness of Judea, stark, dry, desolate. Lush to lifeless. In a distance, you could walk in 2 days. These extreme landscapes weren't just scenery, they shaped how people lived. Each isolated micro-region fostered a distinct way of life. Fertile valleys produced small settled farmers. The rugged hill country bred semi-nomadic shepherds. Fortified hilltop towns created urban communities, and the trade routes sustained the merchants and caravan traders. These weren't just different jobs. They were different cultures, different calendars, different priorities, different ways of understanding the world. Mountain ridges and desert wadis acted as natural borders. Tribalization, the tendency for people to organize into distinct, semi-independent groups rather than a unified state, wasn't a choice. It was a geographic inevitability, and this is why the books of Joshua and the Judges describe not a unified nation, but a loose confederation of tribes struggling to cooperate. So, what does all this mean for reading the Bible? When you encounter tribal rivalries, regional conflicts, debates about monarchy, or the constant threat of foreign invasion, you're not reading about failures of character. You're reading about the inevitable consequences of geography. The land itself was the first author of Israel's political story. Every mountain ridge is a tribal border. Every valley is a battlefield. Every trade route is both a lifeline and a vulnerability. The terrain wrote the script before any king or prophet stepped onto the stage. From Denver to Death Valley, 1,000 miles of American landscape. From Jerusalem to the Dead Sea, 15 miles. All of that extreme diversity compressed into a space you could walk across in a day. Snow-capped peaks, fertile plains, barren desert, the lowest point on earth. A corridor of wealth and a magnet for war. Canaan was a land that gave its people everything they needed to thrive, and made it nearly impossible for them to do it together.